good? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Statement of meeting notice. Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the public 48 hours in advance of the date setting forth the date, time, location, and type of meeting. Notice was sent to the Daily Record, the Observer Tribune, the Washington Township Clerk, and was posted on the district website at www.WTSCHOOLS.org. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. I hope everyone's enjoying what's left of the summer. The district as a whole is working hard to gear up for a successful year ahead. We're very excited to have with us tonight the Long Valley Middle School softball team. They won Group 4 softball championship back in June, and we're happy to present them today with certificates for their sportsmanship and victory. I'd also like to thank Charlene from NJSBA for being here tonight to facilitate our board retreat. This is a very important part of the work that we do as a board to come up with goals and set the bar for both the board and the district as a whole. And now on to Superintendent's comments.
Good evening, Washington Township School community. I hope everyone is enjoying a wonderful summer. I'm very pleased to report we remain on track for a smooth opening of our schools on September 1st. Attention to all incoming 6th graders. Please mark your calendars for next Tuesday, August 16th. LVMS will be hosting all incoming students from 10 a.m. to noon for an in-person orientation and tour. If you haven't yet, please RSVP for this event by visiting the LVMS website. We look forward to working in partnership with our families to ensure all of our incoming 6th graders experience a smooth transition to Long Valley Middle School. That being said, I do want to reiterate that August 16th is a student orientation, and therefore it is a students-only event. Parents should not plan to attend the event as well. I would like to highlight the sub-rates on our agenda this evening. These new rates demonstrate some significant adjustments across several job categories to better align our rates with county average rates. I'm also pleased to report we will continue to implement the incentive program for our teacher substitutes, where they will earn a higher sub-rate to be paid as an end-of-the-year bonus after serving as a substitute for over 40 days during the 22-23 school year. Our substitutes across all job categories play a vital role in our ability to create a supportive and caring environment for our students and professional staff. These rate adjustments are meant to further demonstrate our appreciation for the valuable roles they fill across all of our schools. In closing, I'm pleased to share that tonight's agenda includes the purchase of social and emotional learning resources for LVMS. During the 22-23 school year, LVMS will pilot the Second Step program. The middle school administration will join our September board meeting to share an overview of the implementation plan. Wishing everyone many enjoyable summer days as we get closer to the September 1st start date of our school year. And with that, we're going to have our first presentation. I'd like to invite Coach Demers to join the board and I up here up front so we can award certificates to our champion Lady Panthers. Board members, if you would maybe come out front, we could form a line so we can greet all of the players. All right, thank you.
right fielder, Raphael Finney. Second baseman, backup outfielder, and pinch hitter extraordinaire, Ellen Stoltenberg.
We have one more round of applause for our. Thank you for coming out, everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. So our second presentation tonight, the board is going to be facilitating a session with Charlene Pearson from New Jersey School Board. Charlene, I dare say you have a tough act to follow. But we'll now use this next presentation to begin the goal development process. All right, thank you.
Do I need to talk into the microphone or? Yeah. Okay. Can I apologize for turning my back to anyone. So just wanted to, thank the board for the opportunity to be here tonight. And it really isn't so much a presentation as facilitating a board conversation about setting priorities for next year. So for the benefit of the, community that we have here, just to kind of explain a little bit about the process and kind of the difference between the types of goals that we're going to be setting. So typically tonight we will talk about two kinds of goals, district goals and board goals. So when we talk about district goals, we're talking about kind of setting the priorities for how we're going to move the district forward for this next year. Recognizing that there are so many initiatives and so many things going on, how can we pinpoint and pick, say, just 3 or 4 things that we think are so important to move the district forward that we're going to hold the superintendent accountable by putting them in his evaluation? So as a board, we are part of a conversation then with the superintendent to kind of help set that what. What are those things we think are that important to move the district forward? And then recognize then that the next part of this equation then is the superintendent or the administration then developing the how, like the action plans as to how they're going to carry out the what that we have helped determine, and then recognize that this should just not be like a one-time thing or one-time conversation, that we then should be, our work then should be evolve around the goals, and it should kind of, we should see the district working in alignment, that as we look at what's going on in the buildings, as we look at what's going on in other departments, all of the work should be aligning to this what that we are, helping to establish right now. So typically in the process that we would get through tonight, we'll usually just kind of coming up with those big ideas or kind of those big buckets or areas that we think should be the priorities, and then we'll usually wordsmith the actual goal statements then at a later time, and then the board will formally adopt the goal statements at a meeting, and then I've seen that they're on your website then for everyone to, to be able to see this direction as well. And then, like I said, there should be ongoing conversation, so as the board is approving things on their agenda, some of that work will be things that are helping carry the goals forward as we talk about presentations that we may be scheduling for the year. A lot of the work then that we'll be seeing is work that is helping to advance these goals. And then we also should kind of report out on our progress so that it's clear to the board, it's clear to the community, to the staff as to what we're accomplishing throughout the year, so that we kind of all have a common understanding of where we are when it's time for the evaluation process. So, effectively, kind of everyone in the district is involved in some way, that we would then, like I said, if the work is taking place in the classroom, then we need that feedback that will come through the superintendent again to the rest of the board. So in a sense, like I said, everyone is involved. Then separate from that are board goals. So that would be the work of the board. There are more and more evidence to suggest that boards that are high performing, that work together with their superintendent, can have a positive impact on student achievement. So, it's really exciting as we talk about student achievement of, kind of being a broader definition of even the softball team that we saw here tonight, that as much as we tell boards that should be part of your work, to me, it's exciting to be able to come and be part of it and see it taking place and see it happening at your meetings. And I think that, we can all attest that that's kind of usually what brings the energy to the work that we do and to the meetings, and kind of helps when we're setting this of kind of reminding us what it's all for. So again, recognizing that that's the work that we're going to be doing. So one of the things that also happened as well is that the board completed a board self-evaluation. That New Jersey School Boards has an online tool that each board member logs on and fills it out individually, and then we compile the results into one anonymous document. So it used to be required by the state that boards had to complete a board self-evaluation, and then about 5 or 6 years ago, when they relaxed some of the requirements, this was one of those requirements. So now we say that boards that could continue to do this work do it because it's a good governance practice. If we're holding the rest of the district accountable, we should hold ourselves accountable. And it's important for us to kind of take that step back and reflect on our work. One of the things we find from boards is that most of our time is spent talking about district initiatives and district issues, and sometimes we don't really take the time to talk about our work and the board's governance work. And so the board self-evaluation allows us a platform to have that conversation, and then information that comes out of the board self-evaluation a lot of times will help us to kind of set the stage for board goals, and perhaps some of the things that come out of the board self-evaluation might be something that might help be part of our board goals. So, to kind of go through the process then, so we'll go through the board self-evaluation, have a conversation about that, and then we'll start talking then about the district goals, because usually we set those first, because sometimes the work of the board can help support the work of the district, recognizing that our roles are different, but we may be able to, not only work on things to improve our processes, but we also may be able to, support some of the district's work as well. So we usually will kind of start by talking about last year, and we reflect on the past year, saying what are the, some of the things that we're proud of. Then we'll look at last year's goals. I mean, the board was in a unique situation in kind of the timing of when you hired and brought a new superintendent on board. That typically we would do this goal setting process in the summer, but last year, your your goals were approved in December. So it's highly likely then that some of the goals that we set for last year, there could still be some work that needs to be done on those goals, and we might want to continue them for another year. We recognizing then that the action steps to accomplish them would be different or build on what the action steps were from this previous year. The board has also done some work on its own kind of to help prepare for this discussion as well, kind of doing a SWOT analysis where you recognize some strengths and challenges and opportunities and threats. So you can also use that information as we have these conversations to kind of talk about that focus or that direction of where we kind of see the big ideas or the big focus areas for next year. So having kicked all that off, I wanted to go ahead then and start the conversation about the board self-evaluation, and I would like it to be just that, a conversation, because as we're talking about it, we're really talking about or summarizing your work and what the board said about itself. So I believe you all have a copy of it, right, with both the document and the charts here. So the board self-evaluation goes over 9 different areas of responsibility for the board, and then there's 2 sections about the board and then about you as the board member. The board self-evaluation is based on a 4.0 scale. So I always look to see over those 9 areas what was the average board score. So in this case, like I said, it's based on a 4.0 scale. The average score that the board gave itself over the 9 areas was a 3.2. And then I look to compare that to last year and how the board evaluated itself last year. And last year's overall average was a 3.0. So we can see that we're continuing to make progress in the work that we're doing. As I looked at those 9 areas to see which ones did the board evaluate itself the lowest on and which one did the board evaluate itself the highest on, the lowest area that the board evaluated itself was in planning, and there the board evaluated its overall board score was a 2.8, and then the highest area for the board was board and superintendent relationships, and there the board evaluated itself at 3.5. Also, in looking at last year's compared to this year, the areas where there was really the largest growth or gains was in the board's evaluation of itself in board operations, in board performance, and in the board superintendent relationship. So as you look at your work and your work that you're doing together, kind of seeing that you have indicated growth in that area compared to last year. So just am going to walk everyone through it. We'll, kind of just briefly go through each one of the areas and just kind of point some highlights out. So I'm just going to start with the first area was well, first just I guess let me explain on the first page. It just talks about what do you value. So the thing that we look for in New Jersey school boards is recognizing that student achievement is the most important work that we do here, making sure that we have valued that highly. So you can see that that is the highest the highest value that the board gave to anything was student achievement. So it kind of continues to demonstrate the board's commitment and understanding to that work. Then as we look at, like I said, and flip the page then to the first section was planning, and I had mentioned that this was the lowest area that the board evaluated itself, and the lowest indicator in the whole board self-evaluation was a 2.6, where the board evaluated itself in reviewing action plans developed to support the goals. So I don't know if that's an opportunity for a process improvement or I just kind of wanted to get some thoughts or feedback from the board about why it would have considered that to be an area perhaps for growth. So I didn't know if anyone had anything to contribute about how that process works and perhaps things that you were looking for or hoping for to be different. Or...
I'm not sure that we have a formal process
Okay.
for reviewing our action plans.
Rob, can you speak up? I couldn't hear you. The fans are just a little bit.
So I'm gonna move this a little closer. Is that better? No?
Is it
I don't know. Sounds like it's on.
on?
Sounds like it's on.
There it is.
All right, that's better. All right, I just have to get really close. Thanks, John. All right, I'll shout until John turns the mic up. But I was saying I don't think we have a formal process for reviewing our action plans. If we do, I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
So I would absolutely agree. That's an opportunity for improvement.
So, I mean, so typically, you would, if we think about kind of planning out our meetings over a 12-month cycle, you might want to pick like a couple times a year and say, okay, if we're kind of getting started in September, perhaps by, say, January or December or some board meeting, that you might have enough work that has been taken place to, so some boards will have specific meetings that they have updates from. In some cases, it just may be updates from the superintendent as part of the weekly reports or information that you receive. In some cases, it is on the website and will just kind of show action steps. So, there's no one right way to do it. There should just be a process that you as a group agree on would like to be a process that you would like to follow to make sure then that you are monitoring the progress on the district and board goals.
My thoughts on that, I'd rather see it as event-driven as opposed to calendar-driven. So I know you could say we're going to do this twice a year, we're going to do it quarterly, but I would rather, sorry, Peter, not to put work on you, but I would rather look to the milestones that Peter details in his action plan, and if he has a milestone in, by April, we're going to do this, okay, let's review this in April or May. It's different by goal. One of the things that at least I would like to see are some multi-year goals.
Some what?
Multi-year goals, goals that actually
yes.
expand across multiple years, not just looking 1 year at a time. So if we're looking at multiple year goals, it doesn't necessarily make sense to look at that quarterly or monthly. I think it kind of depends on the goal. Some of our goals we may figure we can accomplish in 6 months. So maybe we look at those monthly. I don't know, I think it depends on the goal.
Yeah, the long-term and the short-term goals, and have a specific date when we're going to see if what has been accomplished at that time. We may say that, we didn't have enough time, but at least we're working on it, and what's the plan to get to the next date that's set?
I mean, maybe we can write something up, but I feel like we do this in a very informal way. We all meet with Peter weekly. He gives us his updates, he gives us his progress, and we're allowed to ask questions on where we are with certain things. So do you have any suggestions as to how other districts do it?
It really is kind of what works for each district. I mean, there's, like I said, I mentioned 3 or 4 different ways that it can take place, and there is no one right way. It's what's best for you based on, the information that you feel like you need and when you need it.
And we do have on our Google Docs drive that we all have access to Peter's 6-month action plan. So I just, if we're going to come up with a goal, I just want something a little more specific as to what additionally we should have that we don't have in place.
Okay, so, I guess we'll have to, you'll have to see if you want to make adjustments to what you have, or if you want to, sometimes it's just coming to a common understanding that a lot of times, board members will be receiving information and sometimes not making the connection that the reason I'm receiving this information is because it's helping support a district goal. So sometimes it's just helping make that connection. And then oftentimes then there's also kind of, questions that I hear a lot of, okay, that's great that I'm seeing progress, I'm seeing updates, but like, how do I put it together? Like, are we 25% through? Are we 50% through? Like, I get all this information, but I'm not really sure how to put it together in order for me to truly understand what the progress is. So sometimes it's just making sure that it's, not that you're not getting the information, but how do we put it together in a meaningful way and make the connections for the board about how this information is relating to the goals.
Well, the main way to do that is by having goals that are measurable.
So, so typically what will happen is the measurement part is important, but a lot of times the measurement piece is in the action plans. So like the goal, we're kind of setting that what is that broad, what is that big direction? And then and then in the action plan, one of the columns is typically, it can be worded different ways, but like, what are the indicators of success? What's that measurement piece? How are we going to know whether this was accomplished or not? So it's important that the measurement piece is in there, and an important part of the goal is the action plans, recognizing that we are having our educational experts craft that part of it. So as long as we have the measurement piece, that's extremely important. It's just oftentimes that's where we find it. So.
I think we should drive to have the measurement piece in the goal itself. What gets measured matters. And we can't decide if we're actually achieving a goal unless we have something that we can objectively measure. I mean, subjective goals like we need a good curriculum. That's a good statement. We need a good curriculum, but we have a good curriculum now. So are we done with our 22-23 goal? No. We should improve on what we have. By how much? How do we measure that? I mean, that's a good goal. I think that's what we should be driving towards. A level of specificity that allows us to objectively measure, have we achieved that goal? Are we ahead? Are we behind? I mean, if we're going to do some type of a mid-year or a milestone review, we need something to point to that says we're on track or we're behind. Can't do that unless you have something to measure.
And I don't disagree. I was just kind of saying that sometimes the specificity is in the action plan.
And so just as a reminder, I guess, to the board, and I want to reassure the public, there might be some sort of miscommunication happening, Charlene, with you right now and the board. We adopted 6-month goals last December after my onboarding process, and then we did write a 6-month action plan. And in that action plan, there was timelines, and then I reported back out about elements of those goals that were either on track or off track. For example, a concrete example, one item that was off track until tonight, thankfully, was the identification of our SEL curricular resources for the middle school. And so we talked about that through weekly updates these last couple of months about why it was off track and so on. So I think we've got a system in place and that's worked for 6-month goals. But to some of the sentiments shared this evening about multi-year goals, more robust goals, data-driven goals, I think that's where we want to go going forward, and that process will expand the action plan. The action plan will become more robust.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. Yeah, so I think there was agreement about where we are.
Yeah. Can I actually chime in too, as far as measuring where we are with our curriculum? For years, Jolene was very diligent with tracking all different kinds of tests and test scores and how the children were tracking within our district, within our state. And as far as I know, we have plans to continue to do that. So I'm not really sure what other, I mean, we do testing, we do tracking, we do see progress.
Yeah, but I don't know that we want to tie ourselves to state test scores as the only way we're measuring progress. I mean, that encourages gamesmanship, and we all know we hate the phrase teaching to the test, right? I think there's a general consensus that we over-test in the state of New Jersey, so I don't know that we want that to be our main metric. I mean, we just brought on Linkit. I'm sure there's a host of other things that we can look at in there that might help us look at student improvement as opposed to just how they performed on a standardized test. Sorry.
What they do in the classroom.
Exactly, yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not just
That's the color.
state
Yeah.
test.
Right.
yeah, I mean, Debbie does all
That's
sorts of
just one
benchmarks.
part of the
Yeah.
whole process.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll just kind of continue to move through this. So the next section then was policy. So when we talk about policy, we're looking at not only the board's work in the policy manual itself, but also the board recognizing its role as a policy-making body and recognizing that, it's that the board doesn't, manage the day-to-day operation of the district, that's the work of the superintendent, and that the board develops the policies that provide that direction. So, it was mentioned in here somewhere that someone had said that they would like to see a policy committee, so I wasn't sure, it sounds like you do your policies based on whatever committee they currently fall in, and for the most part, sounds like perhaps.
Charlie, may I interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
So I appreciate the process you're going through here. I would just want to share, and I thought we had discussed prior to the meeting, that the board, building up to tonight's meeting, has done a significant amount of pre-work towards developing board goals and beginning to develop those board goals. My general sense, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the board might like to use this time to discuss board goals rather than going through this right now. It just doesn't seem like it's resonating, but if I misspoke, does that sound?
I would agree with that. I can't
Okay.
obviously speak for everybody else.
Would you be able to facilitate a discussion about board
No,
goals?
I just didn't want to diminish the work that the board had done in completing this document, and so, wanted to, recognize, I guess, that there's value to the board in in completing a board self-evaluation and the work that goes along with that, so. Okay, but if the board is satisfied in just reviewing the results yourselves and not going through it together as a group, that's certainly fine with me, so. So I will move over there then, and if we'll just then build on the work that you talked about. I have, last year's board goals. I don't know if the board would find that helpful to have last year's district and board goals as something for you to look at and consider to build on. So I guess I'll just start here.
Unless we could turn off that fan, I'm having trouble hearing her. But I know that it'll be hot.
If I turn the fan off.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so as, like I said, as we're looking at or talking about board goals, we would be talking about work that all of the tasks to accomplish that work would be the work of the board. So we would be talking about things that the board would like to work on, to improve its processes for its work. Like I said, it was mentioned that you have already done some work to help guide this conversation. So, actually, I guess, like I said, we can look at last year's goals and say, you know what, this is still a good goal for us, we'd like to continue working on that, or in our work of other things that we've identified, we have identified other things that we think are important.
Charlene, you said we're starting with board goals?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
So last year, your first one was that the board would focus on student achievement and work with key stakeholders. And we talked about a long-range facilities plan, the professional development for staff, and current member board governance board.
I think a lot of that's still applicable, especially the long-range facilities plan, because that's obviously still ongoing. Yeah, exactly.
Has there been one developed already, now there's more work to it, or are we still working in the development phase?
I don't know that we-
So I would say that we've developed it, and then we'll be moving into the next phase, which is the implementation.
Right.
So then we would change the goal from develop to the implementation.
Yes.
Which plan are we talking about here?
Number 2, I think. The long range. Are we talking about number 2? Yeah.
Just making sure. Thank you.
I also think that our first goal should always be in the forefront with just student achievement. I mean, without that, why are we here? But maybe we can, rework the wording if anybody feels that we're missing anything or need to add anything. To me, that should always be goal number one.
Does that just mean academic? Does that mean social, emotional, mental,
Well, right.
physical?
So if you read
I
it.
think we need to add all of that because it, just student achievement, what does that mean?
Well, it's in there. I mean, it's explained.
Right.
It embraces the diversity of all students, educational excellence, social, emotional well-being.
Yeah, that's
for
in there.
students.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
the only thing I have an issue with here is that we don't define key stakeholders in that first line. It's just a very
That's a good point.
basic marketing term. So
Jason, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
key stakeholders in the first line.
Okay.
I'd like to define that. What does that mean?
Right.
Because everyone is a stakeholder in the school district. So if we could nail that down, that would be great.
Kind of going back to what we were saying before, is there something that we should think about adding to the goal where we can actually measure our progress and say, for this year it's been achieved, or put some type of a deliverable or something? Because obviously, student achievement is always going to be a goal.
Right.
But really to just have something more targeted.
Yeah, how do we know
For
we've
the
achieved
year.
it for 22, 23?
No, the action plan is going to be the thing that measures
Right.
the goal.
Right.
So, and this is all the board's part of it, so the board is not going to, be doing the student achievement work. The board will be supporting it, the board will be providing the resources, the board will be providing oversight. So what's the board's part of this work?
Yeah, that's my question. What is our part so that we know we've achieved that? How do we claim success on that? What does that look like?
Well, I think one of the, the achievement as far as, is the fact that we went and the board gave their permission to have that math person come in.
Right.
So I think that is, I think that was wonderful. I think that was a great, we should do more of things like that. I thought that was very commendable.
I think another thing that we could measure will be the success of the social emotional program that we're going to be piloting at the middle school. So this is our first year we're going into it, and I think at the end of the year that's something that we absolutely will be able to accurately measure, whether or not it was successful, we want to continue with it, or we want to move on to something else.
Should that be
But
its own goal?
I'll cut
Yeah.
off Rob. How do we measure that?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the question. Is it survey based
Well,
on
I think
September
we-
10th versus June 10th?
Right, and we talked a little bit about that, I feel like, in education committee last night in terms of surveys, and Peter, I think you want to chime in on that?
I can add, yeah, no, that's very much on our radar. I think part of the initial implementation plan will be familiarizing ourselves with the resources, and then I would want to, by the mid-year, the latest, have some type of data point that we could use as a starting point to then measure against come the end of the school year. So I think surveys are likely going to be where we land on that, yeah.
I want to chime in too, because I think there's two different types of measurements that we're talking about, right? There's measurements that we do as a board, and obviously we don't do day to day. We have no direct impact on curriculum or how that gets implemented, how that gets measured, or anything like that. With our success is the work we do in the committees, which is why the committees are so important. If we have questions like, hey, Peter, how are we going to measure the success of SEL? That's our piece of it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the board goals shouldn't be so specific on how those things get measured, because they're our personal goals, and it's our job to make sure that the district is doing their part to measure the success of those goals, correct?
Yeah, but we shouldn't be able to claim success just because we've held 12 committee meetings.
Because what, Rob?
We shouldn't be able to claim success just because we've held 12 committee meetings.
No, it's the work
No,
you
but
do
I
in the
think- I
committees.
think it's board approval
Right.
of things like this new social emotional program at the middle school. It was board approval for the math program that we're doing. So I think it's us taking a look at these different things in committees and approving them so that the district can take these things that we've approved and run with them. And then once we've had a chance for them to get going for a little bit, then we can get into those data points and really take a look at the measurable points of success.
All right, well, we're going to approve that tonight. I assume. I don't want
I
to
think,
speak out of turn, so now what?
I think that the word focus is a little bit ambiguous. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean the board will support district initiatives, that the board will do some, to get to that voting point? I mean, it's just not focusing. I mean, in committee meetings, our focus will be on student achievement, and it's supporting the ideas of the administration, the recommendations of the administration that are focused on student achievement. So maybe we just kind of tailor the goal to take out that word focus, which I think is overly broad, and indicate how we're doing that. So that really, when we end a committee meeting, each time we could look back and say, okay, in that committee, am I achieving that goal by supporting these initiatives or having discussions of recommendations? I mean,
Yeah.
just to make it a little bit more clear, where at the end of every committee, we could say, check the box.
Yeah,
I-
put a written plan
yeah.
together that says we're going to evaluate every committee meeting and we're going to, I don't know, do something.
But that could be even through our minutes, like when
Sure.
we approve the minutes, you know, in completing the minutes, we could say that this committee meeting was in accordance with board goal number 1,
Yeah.
where we could show a track record of accomplishment.
That's a good point.
And at
Yeah, I
a
think
board
that's a fair
meeting,
point.
like we have now, we can go over the goal
Yeah.
Yes.
and see if we accomplished it or not.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
I'd love to
Yeah.
see specific action items or items on the agenda tie back to the goals. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So even like.
Because these
so-
should be revisited
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
every so often.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
So maybe that's something, again, going to the minutes, where if we're talking about finance and facilities, when we're talking about board goal number 2, we would say, you know, that the committee agrees that we've successfully contributed to the accomplishment of board goal number 2 during this committee meeting, or something like that, where we're doing the checks and balances to make sure that everyone is participating towards achievement of the goals.
And I think
Yeah,
it gives a
like that.
connection of what you've worked on to where we all are, if we're not on that committee, to what goal that is equivalent to. It helps to take care of.
Yeah.
And it would make me feel more connected to committees I'm not on.
Sure. Show how we're
Yeah.
moving the needle.
Right. Yep. Good idea.
The other 2 goals, I guess, were actually, that we had talked about was the professional development goal number 3 and goal number 4.
As far as number 4 is concerned, we had kicked around the idea of becoming, please correct me if I get this title wrong, but is it a master board, certified master board? Is that correct?
We are a certified board. We got that.
No, not board, master. That's
There's-
the next level up.
There's no, well, yes, right. The master board certified, correct?
The next
Right.
level, beyond what we have now.
Yes.
So you want to expand that one to move to the next level.
Throwing it
Yep.
out there, it's not a small commitment.
Can you remind us, Charlene, what the time frame is on that? Because I know it's short. Not like short, but,
It's 2 years from when you earned the cert.
which we just got.
So 2 years from now, the board has to train together for 10 hours for 2 years.
Charlene, what did you just say? I didn't hear you.
It's a 2-year time frame, so from 2 years from now, the board has to train together, so like tonight we count toward it, like 7 of the 9 board members would have to be present, for 10 hours of training together as a board.
Oh.
It can be broken up like this at part of a regular meeting, if you want to schedule separate retreats, however you want to do it, as long as the training takes place over a 2-year period.
That seems doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And I think that we even discussed what training at some point. I have it in my notes. I'll have to find it.
And then what about the third goal, which was working separate, it's not last year?
monitoring aspect of this seems to have come through with the math audit, which helped, but that was just one piece of the puzzle. We
Right.
didn't seem to, not that we didn't monitor it, but
Right.
that was in depth. That was helpful for everybody. That there was next steps there. I don't feel like we were able to do that
I
with.
think also the hiring of the STEM person
Yes. No.
is another.
We can't hear you, can you speak into the
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Want me to start over?
No, I heard most of it, I think I can figure it out.
Did you
Got
hear
it.
what the hiring of the STEM person also would fall into that.
Yeah. I think we should add on to it. Again, like to monitor the effectiveness of some of the things. I know we had tossed around the idea of maybe like a board walkthroughs periodically, or sit-ins, observations, sort of like that. Right.
See what's, like the superintendent can say, oh, I went to this math class and wow, what instruction.
Right.
It was unbelievable. Well, me hearing about it and actually being there, seeing it, are two different feelings.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind seeing a stronger tie between professional development and student achievement. I don't, that's probably a tall order to link those directly, but, for every opportunity we provide in terms of professional development, can we show some benefit, some return on that investment? I don't know, is there a way to do that?
I know with the reading programs we have for special education, like some of the newer ones that we implemented, and you could talk to Denise Scorpin about this, there has been measurable success.
And that was a, sorry, go ahead, Peter.
I was just going to say, I think some of the more recent comments may be getting into more district level goal setting, so I just wanted
Yeah.
to share that for your reflection. And so, Charlie, I don't know if you would agree or have a thought on that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but if the goal is to support professional development, again, I'm going to keep beating this drum. How do we show that we've done it? How do we show that we've supported? Is it just approving conferences, approving training? Is it something more than that?
So I can think of one specific example, and it does relate back to the math audit report that we had provided, and then since now a professional development contract is in place to support those findings, and in that contract are goals. So that works. So we have clearly defined goals for what, so if you were to ask me, what will success look like for this contract? There are 3 goals that we developed that we would expect to be able to see progress towards by the end of this school year, and is one way of doing that. And then what we'll, I think, want to do through more data analysis is determine what do we think are achievable student outcome goals as well, related to math development, math instruction across the district. I think that's stuff that will be in development, assuming one of your board goals lands on student achievement, improved instruction, so on, which I suspect it sounds like will.
So is the goal for professional development something as simple as increase the professional development opportunities of staff by 10%?
It's not. For example, I know one of the goals speaks specifically to providing teachers with guidance and support.
No, I didn't mean of the contract itself. I meant,
yes.
For the board, right? So that's the past. We've done that, and we're going to continue that. So is it to up our game and have more opportunities in the future? Like, what's our goal?
Nice.
Doesn't that depend on budget and the district needs at the time, which I feel like are constantly changing? So I don't know that that's an answer that we could possibly give tonight. I think it's going to be something that changes over time.
And I think from the board's perspective, or, if we, again, kind of go back to the board's role in this process, professional development, the planning of it, how much of it's needed, is all the work of the district. From the board's perspective, we need to make sure we're supporting that work, and sometimes, we may say, maybe twice a year, we want the staff to come and give a presentation about some of the professional development things that happened this year. So
if I could just make one other comment, Carmen, kind of going back to the sentiment you shared just a few moments ago about the great math lesson and so on. So I think, and this is also for the teachers who may be watching at home, I think that one thing that I know I want to commit to, and we've talked informally about, is bringing more content to board meetings. So bringing more examples to board meetings, presentation to board meetings. I think that's the way that we would get you to experience that wow. Not likely in the classroom.
No, not in the classroom.
Okay, good. I just want, again, for those watching at home, I just want, thank you.
Yeah, good,
No,
thank
no.
you.
All right, so we would use monthly presentations on professional development to help drive this? Is that kind of the suggestion I'm hearing?
I would see that being a theme of one over the course of the year. I don't know that there would be a monthly always on professional development, but for example, so we've already made this commitment, I alluded to in my report tonight. It's the September board meeting, we're going to have a presentation from the middle school administration specific to the implementation or the start of the implementation of Second Step. And so that will give you as board members insights into what our initial goals and priorities are to that implementation. And then you can expect through my action planning, through my reporting back to you through the school year, to get further updates on how that implementation is going, which will likely be very informed by teacher feedback. It's a significant new program, and there's going to be a whole range of different reactions from our staff that we'll want to take very seriously and be empathetic to. And so that will very much inform the implementation. And then I consider it my duty to make sure you are informed of that as well. And I think that would create that buy-in or that sense of like, how are we supporting something through that process, if that resonates or not.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, Mrs. Peterson, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Maybe move the mic to it or something? I want to make it as easy as possible, we can't hear you.
Thank you. Usually I speak loudly, but I guess because my back is turned, right? Okay. Is there anything else based on the board's other work or things that you've talked about that you feel should be included that we have not discussed? Recognizing board goals is a fairly healthy number of goals, but I don't want to leave out any other work that you may have done that might suggest that there's something we haven't touched on yet that the board would consider to be important.
Well, one of the things that came up a couple of times in the pre-work that we did was an opportunity to improve communications from the board to the community. So I would like to see a goal that focuses on communication. And I know we have a communication committee, which would probably be an avenue to execute that, but I'd like to see some goal around communication, given that that was a recurring theme as an opportunity for improvement.
So again, it's kind of that distinction between what the board's role is in communicating with the community as opposed to that typically being primarily the district's role. So we would have to be able to distinguish what part of that would be the work
Of the
would
district.
belong in the board's lane of the board's work.
I mean, I'd like to see the same thing as a district goal, to be honest, but yeah, I agree, it's separate.
That might be where it lives, though, Rob. I mean, you know, I think I also saw all the pre-work you did, and so I can assure you the pre-work you all did will inform the district goal development as well. So I think we can make sure that lands there.
And I thought that was a district goal, because that's what we were working on. Yeah, that's what we've been
Yeah, it has been.
improving on.
Some of the initial deliverables on that were the website and so on. What I envision going for the mobile app, what I envision going forward is we'll see things related to wanting to have frequent posts and sharing on social media, things like that. So that's sort of how I see that potentially evolving at the district level.
Absolutely. But does the board have a role in that?
Other than paying for the website, I'm not sure.
I mean, we did go ahead and approve the new media person who will be handling the app and the Facebook page and all of that. So I think that was pretty much our handiwork.
And and Charlene, correct me if I overstate this, but I think the board's role in that would be holding me accountable to seeing the result.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's probably the most direct way to say it, right?
communicate with the community outside of?
There is,
These
but it's
meetings,
sounding
or-
like that's a district level goal versus
Right.
a board
Yeah, I
level
know.
goal.
It's
I'm
not
talking
our
about the
board. So we
responsibility as
can't-
board members to go out there and post stuff on social media for other people to have information. That should come from the district, kind of thing.
Okay, even if it's things like the long-range facilities plan, or?
That should come from the district.
Oh, may I build on that for a moment, though? Then I do wonder, Rob, there, if the goal that it looks like we're going to have something around long-range facility plan, I would welcome in the board goal some type of commitment around, there's going to be, I don't know if public relations is the right term per se, but there's going to need to be community engagement. Maybe it's not communication, but community engagement, and that some board members may want to work in partnership with the district administration on the community engagement of the long-range facility plan.
Like in forums.
And I think-
Forums, exactly. Go ahead.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, I think one of the opportunities for that community engagement specifically would be an upcoming referendum. We're going to have community forums, and that would be something maybe that members of the Facilities and Finance Committee wants to be a part of it, to engage and communicate with the community.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a number of opportunities for community engagement coming up. Long-range facilities plan, the new health standards. I mean, we're not probably going to be delivering most of those presentations, but I think supporting those is a board goal.
I think in terms of the board's role in communication, I think if we want to make it a goal, I think it would be that the board, through the committee process, collaborates with the administration on enhancing visibility. Because I feel that as the communications committee, that is what we do. I mean, we discussed, we previewed the website, we talked about the app, we talk about messaging to the community, we've talked about how comments are delivered, discussed, addressed. So I think that there is a board role, but I think it's more in terms of collaboration with the administration, in terms of what the administration is communicating on behalf of the district, rather than a direct communication from the
100%.
board to the community. So I think in terms of a goal, I think it would be to enhance the collaboration of communications and transparency from the district to the community through the committee process.
Great.
So does that take the form of a plan, or? Because you were asking before about a deliverable, right? So what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Is it a
that,
communications
again,
plan?
I think that the deliverable with that is the meeting minutes that we have each month. Which again, we could state that, kind of identify how it's furthering that goal. So we collaborated regarding X, Y, and Z, our plans are X, Y, and Z. And then in the committee, we come up with more of a deliverable process specific to the communications aspect.
And that's what
Okay.
will happen a lot of times with board goals, is if there's a goal that lives pretty much in a committee, where the committee will be doing the bulk of the work, to turn it, like, rather than trying to wordsmith and figure it out here tonight, just take the big ideas up, you have to say, we agree that there, that this needs to be a focus or priority. Let's turn it over to the committee to vet this out and have a little more conversation about it, to come back with something to present to the board. Okay, so we good then with, we, kind of took last year's four board goals, kind of tweaked them a little bit, with the student achievement one, we said we're gonna continue that, but we know we have to define who the key stakeholders are. With the long-range facility plan, we are going to more focus on the implementation and also recognize that there needs to be like a partnership with the community engagement piece of it. Also, I guess in the student achievement, I had, we talked about kind of that we were going to take out the word focus and look at it differently, and kind of more at the end of every committee meeting, talking about how we're going to track the board goals that are, relative to what was the connection between the work that's going on in the committee and the board goals. And we were going to, for the training one, work toward the master board, and then now for the professional development, we said that we would bring more opportunities then we talked about then adding a communication goal that we would do, like enhancing collaboration and transparency of communication to the community through the committee process. Any good with that? Okay, so then the next piece of it then will be the district goals then, and kind of talking about then how this, so we talked about now the work of the board, and we said how that was separated from the work of the district, recognizing then that the work of the district would be, those kind of 3 or 4 priorities that we think, are important that we're going to include in the superintendent's evaluation. So again, we have last year's goals that we looked at. I don't know if you have some things that you'd like to share in terms of priorities or things that are still in progress that need to continue.
Sure, I can highlight two that we've already really alluded to tonight. Certainly the social and emotional learning piece is in progress, both at the elementary and the middle school. I see that as a theme going into next school year. The math work is now really kind of goes into the first level now, and I see that likely being a multi-year goal that we were referring to a little earlier. The referendum that's come up, I would see that living in a district goal as well. And just in general, the idea that we have now come out of a pandemic and need to really be thinking seriously about accelerating student learning. The way we implement our MTSS system in conjunction with Linkit, with coherence, for universal screening 3 times a year, I think will be an essential part of a district goal for next year and likely beyond. And that does speak to having more data capacity, more data warehousing. All of those things the groundwork has been laid, but we really move into implementation phase with the 22-23 school year. And then, as has been said already this evening, communication and the importance of continuing to improve our communication and our branding. I think it was mentioned earlier today, I think the website's a nice step in the right direction, but now using that website effectively to get out and spread the great news that's happening in our classrooms consistently would be a theme of district goals as well. I welcome any feedback there.
We talked a lot about communication as an area for improvement. I would want to see this as probably a multi-year goal. I don't know that this is something we want to bite off in 1 year, but maybe we create and execute a written communication plan for starting with perhaps the middle school, capitalize on, recognize academics and achievements, pilot it at the middle school, get some feedback, the whole 9. Do a stakeholder analysis, figure out what the students want to hear, what the parents want to hear, what the staff want to hear, and then maybe branch out to the other schools in successive years.
Are you thinking like a newsletter of some kind?
I don't know what that looks like, to be honest. I don't know what that solution is. That's why I'm just saying maybe just a written plan. Probably going to use the app, probably going to use the website. Maybe it's email, maybe it's a physical hard copy. I don't really know what the stakeholders are looking for. I can talk to kids and they say, I really wish I knew what the lunch menu was earlier. Because they get the lunch menu after they've already packed their lunch in the morning. It's a somewhat, I don't want to say it's a trivial example, but it's a simple example. So that's an example of something that needs to be communicated that we have the opportunity to improve on. Is that the app? I don't know. But that comes out of that stakeholder analysis. Students are stakeholders. What do they need to know? How do we communicate to them? How do we communicate to parents? Parents are asking, what time does the bus come? How do we communicate that effectively to them?
I'm in agreement. I think all of those are some of the elements that'll be part of the discussion and the debate around improved communication.
Just want to make sure there's a consensus then on these being the areas of agreement or focus. So we have SEL, math, referendum, accelerating student learning, which will be inclusive of data and data capacity, and then communication/branding, recognizing that will be a multi-year. Probably many of these might be a multi-year goal.
I'm sure they will.
Right.
Yeah, I think those are all good themes. I would want to put the work in to figure out how to translate a theme to a goal. Like I see accelerated student learning. Is that increasing vertical articulation pathways, intra and inter-school? Again, how do we measure? I know I keep saying it, but accelerate student learning, how? Is it more, say it again, more vertical articulation pathways? What does that look like?
So that may be one of them. So if you think about the, you may all not have seen it recently, but the action plan we did for the 6-month plan, there was a column in there that was titled drivers. And so those are the drivers that we would identify for that type of goal would be what I would refer to as the how. Like how, if we are in agreement that improved vertical articulation or even horizontal articulation across the elementary schools, for example, would help drive accelerated learning in a specific area, I would see naming that as one of the drivers. And then, if you, again, reorienting to that document, the next column over was tasks. That's where you get into the nitty-gritty about what do we need to do to create that articulation and bring that to life across the schools, if that becomes one of the drivers.
Yeah, and I'm not looking for the tasks tonight, absolutely not. But I would like to see some of that other stuff, what you call the hows, I would like to see some of that bubble up into a top-level goal. Because just saying we want smarter kids, okay, yeah, I agree with that, but I think we could do better for a goal.
I think in order to get there, though, we have to look at what we're already doing and seeing maybe where we're falling short. And I just feel like in this conversation, it almost seems like we're not doing any of this when we are doing this. So maybe in order to really feel like it's getting momentum, we need to look at what we're currently doing and then build on it.
Yeah, build on what we're currently doing, and then we have a list of weaknesses that we identified, so what can we do to overcome those weaknesses?
And then let us all know.
So, I mean, I think that our task tonight is well recognizing that this is like a more than just a thing that we can do here tonight. I think here tonight was just coming to a consensus or agreement on what these big areas are, and then either asking the superintendent or asking the committees, however you want to author or, you know, kind of put together a goal statement, and then, like I said, and recognizing that then going from there. I think first we need to start with an agreement on what the big ideas, the
With-
focus areas.
With due respect, we didn't need an hour to say that student achievement is our #1 priority. We know that already.
Yeah, I think, you know, looking at the goals when we sit here next year, we want to be able to look at this and be able to check it off. Yes, we've done this, it's done. What's our new goal? Where I think a lot of the goals are more like initiatives, right? So our focus, our initiative is student achievement. But what is the goal? That we can have a deliverable and endpoint at the end of the year to say, yes, this is done, we can achieve this, or we've achieved this. So I think it's something like measurable, but something that's a little bit more tailored and focused, where yes, student achievement, but what is it about student achievement? We're looking at student achievement as a whole. Where do we need that improvement? What is the focus of the district this year on enhancing that, and how will we know next year that it's been completed and we're ready for a new goal to build on that previous goal?
Or we make it a multi-year goal. Maybe it's a 3-year goal.
Right, so, I mean, I'm
With
just.
milestones every year.
Right, so goal area, so looking at number 1, Washington Township Schools will plan for the implementation of universal screening protocols. Great. And refine the delivery of curriculum instruction and assessment to promote student growth, achievement, and strong mental health. So that second piece there, refine the delivery of curriculum instruction and assessment. How do we measure that and determine objectively that that has been achieved?
We talked a lot about I'm sorry. I didn't-
No. So I'm just using that as an example where you could say, yeah, we've achieved that, and I could say, well, that's kind of ongoing. I think a lot of the goals that we come across are multi-year ongoing, but I kind of feel like they're infinite. Like, we'll never fully achieve it because it's always going to be our initiative to enhance. So looking at the word goal, I mean, maybe we want to think about how we want to actually be in a position to check it off the list and say it's achieved.
So that's one where I think we're actually close to checking off. A lot of what you see there in that last part of the goal you read, support, monitor, refine delivery of curriculum and instruction, it speaks to the Lincoln partnership. And so evidence of us being able to do that in a more efficient manner and building our teachers' capacity to not only review data or do less data entry and more data analysis, that's what we're on the cusp of being able to do now with that full implementation. So That would be sort of one concrete example of how that goal could be checked off potentially in the near future.
Great, so how do we drive the use of data in our instruction?
So
I think it's a huge piece of it.
Yep.
I think we all agree, but now what? We got Linkit.
So now it's about the professional development for how to use Linkit, how to have that data, and then to have the time in the school day for teachers to have those conversations around that Linkit data to then drive the instruction.
Okay, that's part of our goal right there.
Yes. I envision some language like that would live in 22, 23 school year goals. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's like what we're saying. So instead of refining, it's like, what are we gonna do to refine?
Yeah.
You know, what are we gonna, data warehousing or analysis, like that would be,
So we're going to have
Yes.
the professional development to use Linkit. You said we're moving past the data entry and into the data analysis.
Correct.
So the data analysis piece, that's a goal.
Yes.
Perform that data analysis and then make some decisions based on that analysis, whether it's per student, per grade, per curriculum. Again, I don't know what that looks like, but that's a goal. I can get behind that as a goal.
Yeah.
And
I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this goal drove that.
Right, right,
Linkit.
correct. You're building on
So now this has to be changed to the next
that.
level.
it. Right.
Exactly.
So what's that sound like?
So I'll start my wordsmithing now that I've gotten all this feedback. And so I'd want to have drafts in front of you all within 2 weeks, candidly. And you can look for that through weekly updates and so on.
Can we make that more of a collaborative process rather than Peter go off and do a bunch of work and then send us something to rubber stamp?
Say more about what you'd like to see there.
A little bit of back and forth?
Sure. In person or?
Sure.
Sure.
I'll speak for me personally. Yeah, absolutely.
So I
I'm
would
a fan of
be-
in person.
I'd be open to using each monthly check-in this month and next month to do that. That would be great for those that are interested in it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're all agreed, these are the areas, the goals are going to be further refined, and that the board will have some voice in that process with the monthly check.
Okay.
I think we accomplished, right, what we set out to do here tonight, so I appreciate the work that you did ahead of time, helped to, to make this, allow us to be able to move through this. I can't, but I appreciate everyone's input in working through this. I'll put this together, and then we'll supplement
Yep.
it by the additional sources.
Thank you, Charlene. Thank you.
Yeah. All the fans.
Yes, the fans must return. I'll even give you a couple minutes to turn those fans back on.
Yeah, please.
Oh, I know. I'm aware. Several people have already asked.
Okay. All right, now that the fans are back on. Correspondence, email from A. Nesvetter, S. De Silva, T. Postigo. Committee reports, education.
Education met yesterday. In attendance, Dr. Turnamian, Debbie Russo, Kelly DeMayo, Stephanie Wilson, Rob Waskis, and myself. Mrs. Russo presented the revisions made in the K-5 health curriculum. She highlighted there was 0 discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity in grades K-2. These topics do not exist in grades K-2. In grade 5, puberty lessons, which is a one-day lesson, are already part of our current curriculum. Sexual orientation and gender identity are added only to be talked about as definition level only. There will be no discussion beyond definition. Mrs. Russo also clarified which resources are being used and how many of them are resources already in use in our classrooms. It was also noted that while there is little change, parents will still be given the option to opt out of family life lessons. Mrs. Russo shared how the health teachers were hopeful families with any questions or concerns would reach out to them directly because the teachers welcome discussions about their lessons with families. Next, Mrs. Russo presented the updates to the art, music, and science curriculum in tonight's agenda. Similar to the health curriculum written, Mrs. Russo highlighted the high quality of work of all the curriculum writers in the area. The committee discussed the second step curricular resources on the agenda this evening. Dr. Tunamian shared Long Valley Middle School will pilot these resources for the 22-23 school year, and the current plan is to have these lessons taught twice a month by all teachers to help support our students' social and emotional development. The committee also discussed the need to consider surveys in the future to help generate helpful data about this work. Dr. T noted that the New Jersey Department of Ed is requiring another administration of Start Strong assessments. The district's current plan is to administer them on September 8th and 9th. They are 45 minutes each day. That's it.
Thank you. All right, public comment on agenda items only. Just as a reminder, please state your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak after.
Carl Shotwell, 11 Jones Lane. I heard, well, first of all, I want to thank you for all you guys do. So I'm volunteer, except for Peter. Mike. I'm the one that yelled at everybody for not hearing, right? I want to thank you all for everything you guys do on this board. As a person not on the board, sometimes it's confusing to us. We don't know how to judge you by what you're doing. I heard talks of goals. You know, we heard talks of district goals and board goals. I want to see board goals. And I heard the comments that we don't have to be so formal. I want them formal. We want them formal. We want to know if you're doing your job and what the goals are, and if you're getting them done. If we failed, okay, why did we fail? How are we going to fix it going ahead? I don't want to be formal. This is the Board of Education. This is the elected Board of Education. I want formal. I want specific answers. Thank you.
John Oldmixon, 194 Fairview Ave. I do just want a little bit more clarification on education, the third bullet point there, for the health curriculum. I am hearing that there is no gender identity discussion. I quickly glanced at the agenda before I came here. I think it was only posted this morning, so between me getting home from work to now. But I do see on there's performance expectations. 2.1.2 SSH discuss the range of ways people express their gender and how gender role stereotypes may limit behavior, which I recognize straight from the state guidance. So maybe that's just what the state wants and we're doing something else. So I just would like some clarification on that, because I was told, and I've heard it numerous times, that it's very tamed back from what the state wanted. So I just wanted to, before you guys vote on this, I just want to make sure everybody's in the know and understanding exactly what they are voting on. So I think that's it. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, Dr. T.
Thank you. So just wanted to respond to both comments this evening. Specific to your comment related to the formality of goals. Both board and district goals, I want to reassure you, will be formally adopted. The timeline that will follow will be likely between the September and the latest, the October board meeting. Once adopted, they will be formally posted on our website. And one of the elements that I heard from the discussion this evening from our board members was a pretty consistent consensus to want to have some type of data element to some of these goals that should help with the tracking piece. You know, a lot of times we refer to them as SMART goals, so it's very likely that these goals in some form or fashion will have that element to them as well. And I can just reassure you, you'll always be able to find them on our website. And if at any point you can't, just please reach out to me directly.
We just don't want to hear not so formal.
Understood. The second comment, John, thank you for being with us again this evening. The guidance has been just that. Even in the information that's come out from the state, I can tell you that we've gotten clarification that a lot of the, for lack of a better term, inflammatory information and inappropriate information that's in there, that's in parentheses, was just suggested. And I can assure you in our curriculum writing, those suggestions were not followed or taken into account. I do want to, though, live up to a commitment we made publicly at least 2 board meetings ago about this whole process. After tonight, we will publish a community forum sometime at the end of this month to dive into more detail for those that are interested into the specifics of the curriculum. So that'll be the next level of it. We're breaking formality here, John. All right.
So the actual curriculum that you guys are voting on tonight, is that made public then? Because I was assuming that, you know, this is the links on the agenda.
Yes.
You click grade 2 health, and I see this. So I just wanted to, you know, I hate to beat a dead horse here, but I just haven't seen it, that's all.
And I don't want to get ahead of myself on getting a winning
Well,
vote here, but
maybe
assuming,
in the past, but-
assuming we get it passed, we're going to have it up on the website by the end of this week.
Okay, so the public doesn't know.
The board has been briefed about what they're voting on. If approved, the public will then be informed and will share it, and then we'll host a forum to talk about and educate the public about the new curriculum.
Okay.
Okay. Let's not break formality again.
On the agenda?
Megan Teeling, 196 Beacon Hill Road, Long Valley. Just want to say thank you for what you're doing with curriculum. I look forward to seeing it, and I commend you for that. Just in a follow-up to what Carl had asked about transparency for board goals, and you had said that they would be posted. How will we be updated as far as progress as those goals are met? Will that be communicated to the community, and in what form do you probably don't know yet, but determine that may be in?
Just making sure. That last public comment? Okay. I actually do. The most formal way that the board and the community will be updated about progress towards goals would be in the form of a board presentation by myself. And those are typically done 2 at the most 3 times throughout the school year. And you heard some ideas at the very beginning of the board's discussion tonight about how they might want to look at that differently and maybe follow a different timeline. But the most formal way would be for me in the form of a board presentation that would be obviously streamed to the community. Informal ways would be me hosting community forums throughout the school year and sharing what the goals are, where we are, and talking about them in detail. The real document that brings the goals to life, which will be developed after the goals are set, is the action plan. And you heard us allude to that a little bit tonight as well. So that's where those updates will live in those places. Thank you.
Can I add something to that from tonight? Also to add, because it was discussed tonight as well, that the board as a whole would like to connect the board goals to our committee minutes. So anytime we have a committee meeting, you know, like Carmine just had, at the end of it we can say, and you know, we worked on this board goal and here's where we're at kind of thing. So there's transparency that way as well. Okay. Approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the July 12th, 2022 regular meeting minutes?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It is hereby moved upon recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education approve the following. Education.
Education would like to move items 1 through 3 on the agenda.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? Roll call?
Yes to all, but no to 3C.
Mr. Capagrosso? Yes. Mr. Constantine?
Yes.
Ms. DeMayo?
Yes.
Ms. Serino?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico? Yes. Finance?
Finance would like to move item number 4 on the agenda, motion to accept with gratitude the following contribution: $294.76 from Life Touch to be used at the Flocktown Cosman School for instructional supplies.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments? Roll call?
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso? Yes. Mr. Constantine?
Yes.
Ms. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Serino?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Finance would like to move items number 5 through 17 on the agenda.
Second?
Second.
Any comments? Roll call?
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes.
Mr. Constantine?
Yes.
Ms. DeMayo?
Yes.
Ms. Serino?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes. Personnel?
I'm hoping you guys can hear me because I'm having a little bit of internet issues, but
Carmine,
Carmine,
could
you
you
wanna-
move personnel?
Yeah.
Personnel would like to move item number 18 on the agenda. Motion to accept with regret the following retirement: Sue Elbaum, aide, Cuccinella School, effective September 1, 2022, due to retirement after 28 years in the district.
Comment?
And if I could just also add on behalf of the administration our sincere gratitude for Sue's 28 years of service to our school community, and wish her much happiness and joy in her retirement. Well deserved, Sue.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any additional comments? Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes.
Mr. Constantine?
Yes.
Ms. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Serino?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
All right, personnel would like to move items 19 through 42 on the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Comments? Do you have any comments? No. Roll call?
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes.
Mr. Constantine?
Yes.
Ms. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Serino?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes. Would you like to? No, introduce.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry, I was jumping ahead. Okay, and with that, I'd like to be the first to congratulate our new assistant principal for Cuccinella. Welcome. And I want to also just acknowledge, we've been doing our leadership retreat this week, and as a volunteer, you've been able to join us both times. And so if you wouldn't mind coming to the mic and just sharing a few words, please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is an exciting moment for me and my family that's here too, my wife and my daughter. It's just, we're just so excited to be part of the community here, and we're so excited to get started here. Just being part of Washington Township, Long Valley, a community that values its students, responsive classrooms, and really has a commitment to education is just something I really, truly want to be a part of, and I'm so excited to be here and part of this community. So thank you so much, everybody, and I'll just keep it short because we've been here a while.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you again.
Okay. Motion to read for the first time the following policies.
You ready?
Yeah, you do the first time. Yep.
Okay. For the first read this evening, we have several policies up for first read. The first, policy 1511, Board of Education website accessibility. Policy Guide 1511 was developed in 2017 as a result of the United States Department of Education Office of Civil Rights requirement for a school district's website content and functionality to be accessible for people with disabilities. In summary, school district websites, including online content offered by third-party vendors to the public, must be in compliance with guidance as per federal regulations and state statute. And for those wondering the obvious question, our brand new website is in compliance. Policy 2415, Every Student Succeeds Act. This policy guide has been revised to reflect the recently updated Title I policy guides concerning parent and family engagement. Parental involvement was revised to read parent and family engagement, and the policy numbers and titles were also updated. For policy 5513, care of school property, this policy guide has been revised to include an updated legal citation. This code section addresses the school district's right to reimbursement for damaged, lost, or destroyed textbooks or Chromebooks loaned to a student. For policy 2430, co-curricular activities, a conflict was discovered between policy 2430 and policy 2436, activity participation fee. To resolve this conflict, language about no-fee co-curricular programs is stricken now from policy 2430. And for policy 5517, school district issued student identification cards. These new statutes require a Board of Education that has any of the grades 7 through 12 and issue student identification cards that shall now be printed on the back of these student identification cards, the telephone number for the New Jersey Suicide Prevention Hope Line, New Jersey Hope Line, and the contact information for a crisis text line. We will plan to also have this information printed on our 6th grade student ID cards, so we will implement this policy for grades 6 through 8 in our middle school. And then lastly, policy 5722, student journalism, will replace both policy and regulation 2432, school-sponsored publications. Strauss-Esme recommends policy and regulation 2432 be abolished and the board adopt the new policy guide 5722. New statutes require school districts to adopt a written policy concerning student freedom of expression in accordance with provisions of the new statutes. And that is all of the ones up for first read.
Okay, thank you. Motion to read for the second time and approve the following policy, Policy 2431, athletic compensation revised. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Ruggiero?
Yes.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes.
Mr. Costenblatt?
Yes.
Ms. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miserino?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes. Any unfinished business? New business. I have new business. In response to concerns about potential increases in the 2023 premiums for the School Employees Health Benefits Program, I'd like to propose that the board look into creating a resolution opposing this increase. This increase has the potential to affect many of the state Board of Education with a negative impact on budgets. The result would be diverting tax dollars away from classrooms, programs, and services that benefit the children. I'd like to stand in solidarity with the rest of the districts in the state for the children, but also as a voice for the taxpayers. Any opinions on moving forward with the resolution to present at this next board meeting? I'd like to ask the Personnel Committee to take on this task. Any thoughts? Comments?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other new business? All right, public comment. Is there any public comment? Same rules apply.
John Oldmixon, 194 Fairview. I was not at the July Board of Ed meeting, and the video is still not available. I don't know if it's going to be or not, so maybe this was covered and I missed it, but there was agenda item 16. I just wanted some clarification on this. I'll read it out loud. It's motion to authorize the superintendent to enter into employment contracts with individuals filling 22 and 23 staff vacancies between board meetings prior to formal board approval. I just wanted some clarification. Are there any limitations on that? I'm sure the intent is an aide, substitute teacher, things like that, but in the odd scenario that it's, I don't think it would ever be this, but a principal or something like that, or what if the board does not approve after the person's already been appointed the position? Is there any protocol for that as well? Again, I just looking for some information on it because I just was reading through last agenda and that one kind of stuck out to me a little bit. Thanks.
Okay. And again, Dr. Toniamian will make comment at the end of everybody's public comment. Is there anybody else who has public comment tonight? Okay.
Hi, Nicole Carioni, 18 Setting Sun Drive. I just want to say I was at home watching the board meeting, and I came here to commend you board members that are speaking up for the goals that the board needs to be responsible for. I can't tell you time and time again, over the last 3 years, the board would have these generalized goals, and the comments from the public were never addressed. There was no transparency, and Rob seems to be asking those questions that all of the parents in this community have been wanting to hear. So Rob, thank you, I commend you. Thank you for fulfilling your duty as a board member. You ran on transparency and honesty, and it's very apparent. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay, Dr. T.
To the public comment around the question for the July board agenda, the purpose behind that ability, that power, if you would, is within New Jersey, when hiring staff from another school district, there's a 60-day requirement. So for us, it behooves us to have our new hires in place as close to, if not on, the first day of school. And so if there's a time lapse of maybe 30, sometimes more days between board meetings, and we have a candidate that we're excited about hiring, by giving me the ability to make a formal offer of employment in between those board meetings, that gives that candidate, assuming they want to, the ability to then resign that position sooner. It basically is about starting that 60-day clock sooner, as opposed to maybe having to wait to a meeting and then starting that 60-day clock. It's just meant for the summer months. You're really at the height of your hiring season, and it's not something that would be in place once the school year is operational. And you did allude to, I think, high-level leadership team positions. That power would not be used for those type of roles. And the other, I don't know that I have a comment in response to the other comment, other than I'm a fan of great goals too. So thank you for supporting that.
Okay, district distinctions. I just want to start by acknowledging all of the faculty and staff who made ESY and the Summer Exploration Program a success for all of our participating students. I'd also like to recognize and thank all of our administrators, teachers, nurses, bus drivers, and custodial staff for all their hard work and prep to ensure that we have a very smooth and successful start to the new school year. And I just want to thank you all so much for your dedication, and I hope you get to enjoy a little bit of the summer that we have left before your first day. Thank you to all, and have a nice evening. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.